I'm glad we could sit down and do this together to try to help people find a better way to work on the entire capture and pursuit process. And I will confuse some of those terms, and I know that you will set me straight, and you'll set the audience straight. You have a solution engineering tool that is a different way to think about this whole process on the tail end of what I've been talking about, where I've had people focused up in the funding and budgeting and appropriations world. Now we're down into the acquisition world, and this is your sweet spot.
In competitive bids, do you really believe that buying business intelligence gives you an advantage if the competition can buy the same intelligence? It only provides you with competitive parity. The key factor is in the ability to synthesize data to best address customer needs. Whether your business is business to government or business to business, the industry-proven solution engineering framework helps optimize and align the thinking from your capture management efforts from across your entire organization to increase your probability of winning and your company's overall value. The Solution Engineering Tool, or SET, is an automation of the Solution Engineering Framework. SET is an easy-to-use online software as a service-based tool of tools that orchestrates critical thinking to solve the many problems typical with any competitive pursuit. SET is a visually federated, digital, and transparent authoritative source of truth that makes each of your pursuits more traceable, irrefutable, defensible, and explainable by capturing the pursuit's necessary upfront evidence-based thinking and facts. SET instills true accountability into your company's business development lifecycle, the trust executive decision makers need to win by enabling evidence-based decision-making. The tool allows you to identify all the components that make up a winning proposal response, including issue and key factor analysis, notional winner benchmark, competitive assessment, discriminator qualification, win strategy and proposal strategy formulation, solution development, and more. It also allows you to document and assess customer role relationship status. SET has embedded tutorials that really set up your business development teams and corporate services for success. It's important to note that SET is not a proposal management tool. It is a collaborative analytical pursuit tool for competitive bids whose output feeds solution development and more. Perfect when your business pursuit team works remotely and collaboration is essential. SET allows you to collect and analyze input from team members, store relevant documents, and facilitate gate or color team reviews. SET even automatically generates a list of strengths from your analyses so that you can score the most points with those evaluating your company's offering. SET complements any existing business development process or tool that your company uses. It allows you to get real-time quantitative insight into the progress of your competitive pursuits, as well as the overall growth status of your company as it pertains to the quality of business development, capture management, and readiness to competitively re-win business. SET allows simple quantification of the quality and effectiveness of your business development efforts. This includes the handoff from business development to capture management, the handoff from capture management to proposal development, and recompete readiness for your existing contracts. It even can measure the growth status of your future opportunities across your entire enterprise. In fact, the commonly used measure of probability of winning, or P-win, is just the temperature of the day, but SET provides a better gauge on your forecasts because it is based on enabling the critical thinking essential to winning competitive pursuits, providing supporting evidence, and instilling the transparency and accountability often missing in competitive business development efforts. Another significant benefit of SET is that it builds a data lake of company-derived competitive business intelligence and captures the intellectual capital of subject matter experts that can decisively increase the success of your next pursuit and the overall value of your company. If you want to learn more about the Solution Engineering tool and increase the overall value of your company, please sign up or contact us now.
Well, SET stands for the Solution Engineering Tool, which I use to do something called solution engineering analysis, which is based upon a framework that I developed a number of years ago called the Solution Engineering Framework. So the Solution Engineering Tool, or SET for short, is a tool of tools. There's 61 tools in there that could be used end-to-end, piece part, or any combination thereof.
You said
And it's a thinking-
62, right?
61.
61 tools. 61 tools. Okay.
Yes, as we define them. And solution engineering tool is used to do the necessary thinking upfront to win a competitive pursuit. Because in any competitive pursuit, you have to answer the ultimate question: why your company? Why would a customer select your company? And in the end, the customer is just doing two things. It's buying benefits, and it doesn't want you to induce any risk into its organization. And what they're doing is they're evaluating the benefits that you could deliver or the risk you'll mitigate in the form of strengths. So to answer that ultimate question, why your company, you have to have what I call a traceable, irrefutable, defensible, and explainable way to answer that. And that begins all the way to what I call the left of the problem, doing issue analysis. At the very beginning of any competitive pursuit, you have to know the customer's issues that are driving the customer to go to industry, put out a solicitation. And around those issues, you have to know why they're issues. And for those customers' issues, you might identify 50, but you cannot address 50 in a competitive pursuit. You have to focus on the top 4 to 7 that are typically driving it. And you want to identify the issue and why it's an issue. And you want to collect what I call psychographic information around that issue. And that would include understanding who are the, for example, the influencers and decision makers and participants on one axis, and the other axis might be, is the individual a visionary or a leader, or have some other type of psychographic attribute, like are they an egotist? Another vector would be, are they admirer of your company? Are they agnostic? Are they an adversary? And maybe is the individual on the evaluation panel that type of psychographic information?
So Peter, if I could interrupt.
Yes.
I referred to this group of people, this broad group of people, as the customer constellation. And it consists of people of these different capabilities within the area of a decision. And you suggest influencers and enablers, and you have taken it to an even further degree by identifying the psychographic elements of those people. I want to try to work our way into the introduction of what this is, and you almost glossed over the 62 different tools that are within this set. And so you use the phrase a tool of tools.
That's right. And what I was just doing there was I started to describe one of the first component subset. So inside of that component where I do issue analysis, the fact that I could do issue analysis is a tool. Within that component, if I was very intimate with the customer, and I was an incumbent, for example, I could do a customer-focused SWOT analysis where I'm with the customer in their office, with the customer's other stakeholders, and I'm working with that customer to help them identify what they think their strengths are, their weaknesses, their opportunities and threats for their organization. That's where I'm really intimate with the customer. That's a second tool within there.
So some people might say, well, Peter, we already do that at our shop. And they may well do that to some degree, but they don't have it in a package like this, where the analysis is something that can be drawn on and is feeding other
correct.
aspects of the analysis. Is that correct?
That's correct, because whenever you use set, any particular component of set, the data is always moving someplace, and that particular component is automatically generating artifacts of your analysis. Because I always say, if you don't have a material artifact of the analysis that you did, then the analysis doesn't exist.
People will have the opportunity to look at the full demonstration of the solution engineering tool, and they'll see how one can move through this model. And people will see that the visual elements and the digital elements are moving from, in the case of you're looking at the screen left to right, you'll be able to see this build. But a key here is that you're only entering that data one time. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct, because when you get a bunch of very busy people together, C-suite people, business developers, technical people, the essence of what you want them to do is to bring your context to the table, context of the customer, the competition, the company, and to have that dialogue. And you want to enter that data one time. You want that data to move to another location where it's going to support another analysis and allow you to get additional value from that data. And you want to generate an artifact of analysis. And as that, in addition to that digital thread being moved, there's a visual blueprint evolving over time. I call it the blueprint to win, that ultimately answers that question, why your company. So when I was just initially describing the first upfront component of using set, doing issue analysis, from there we do a key factor analysis. And there we're trying to identify what are these key factors that have to be brought to the table by any competitor to win the competitive pursuit. I look at them and it's reflected in the tool from a technical, management, personnel, and corporate experience perspective. Now, key factors are like table stakes in poker. Anybody has to bring them to the table. And there's a push-pull relationship because the customer may be identifying key factors to you that something's important and they're going to be looking for it, but they may not put it into the solicitation for any number of reasons. An example, they may say that they want a program manager with 10 years experience and maybe a PMP certification, but they'll never say that they want a program manager that they'll never say materially in a solicitation that they want a program manager who's walked the halls of the building before, knows the policies, the politics, the protocols, because they cannot have a program manager going through another learning curve. But when you're evaluating bidders, they're going to be looking for that. And they said it, but they didn't materially put it in response, but it's going to be important to them. Likewise, you can push up key factors by when you do meet with the customer and you tell the customer, did you ever think about this because, did you ever think about making sure that the next time you bid this, the program manager is somebody that has an understanding of the politics and procedures and protocols of the agency or the building. And then when that may end up as a requirement, I'm correct, they may put it in instructions, wherever the case may be, or they may not, but you planted the seed and it's going to be resonating with them when you're evaluating your bid. So,
and Peter, if I could, because I know you are expert at this, and you want to bring us inside each of the tools, and I want to try to let people do that exploration in their use of the longer form video that's specific to how to use set. But maybe you can describe what does it look like? What do those artifacts look like? Say it's a key factor summary. Is there a way I can push a particular button and it'll produce a report that shows this, or is it a visual? What's the artifact?
Okay, when you are collecting data in set and you're doing it through the dialogue or discussion, you're essentially entering information of what would be very similar to an Excel view. And in the past, I would either have an Excel view or I'd have it on a whiteboard or a flip chart, and I would get it to Excel or I'd get it to Word. But in the end, I would always produce a narrative that would, around a particular issue, that identified the issue statement and a rationale for that issue. And it would take me a little bit of time to do that manual transferring. And I knew what the design of that paragraph needed to be, but eventually to write it such that it was in a King's English. Well, what SET does is, if I can select the particular issues that I want to display for narrative. And what SET does is it generates an interim document that is color coded. And the color code would have, you'd have the issue statement, and you'd have an issue category, say external influences. And then if you identified 3 types of issues that were concerned to the customer, like, for example, budgetary constraints, or global war on terrorism as a challenge, or maybe the client had to do business transformation, and that was mandated by Congress, and those were external issues. Each one of those issues would be in a separate color. The rationale below them would be another little narrative in color, would be the rationale to each of those issues that would map 1-to-1. And then below that would be the client's names who were concerned about those issues. And that quick little rainbow colored interim step allows me to very, very quickly turn it into a black and white narrative in a matter of moments, where that used to take me as much as maybe just to make that one paragraph, sometimes 25, 30 minutes.
So these are outputs that are able to be called upon at any point along the 60 plus tools that are being used along the way as you move through the model.
That's right, because everything in SET is exportable to Word and/or Excel. So if I did issue analysis, my artifacts that I leave from that are issue narratives. If I did key factor analysis, my artifacts that fall out of that are key factor narratives, a technical narrative, a management narrative, a personnel, and a corporate experience. And I have these narratives, but at the same time, the element data moves. The issues data moves to key factors so that I can align key factors to issues. The key factor data moves to my proposal strategies, or my strengths, or my evaluation criteria, so I could also line those up. And what you start to eventually see is that formation of a digital thread. I can do a notional winner benchmark. I can identify the ideal winner, the top 10 attributes. I use that as a benchmark. And then I use that context to come in and do what I call a competitive assessment. In the competitive assessment, there's 4 different tools. I could do a very basic strength, weakness, opportunity, threat analysis. I could do bidder comparisons. I could do a technique called Fortify Forces analysis. I can do a black hat review. And the reason I do those different types of competitive analyses is because whenever you think, it's sort of like you're thinking with a different part of your brain. So if I identified strengths with a bidder comparison, I might not have identified those strengths when I did a SWOT analysis because I was thinking a different way. And as I'm identifying the strengths for my company and my weaknesses, and the same for my competitors, such that I can highlight my strengths or minimize my weaknesses, or neutralize the competitor strengths, or exploit their weaknesses, as well as other things. These are strategies. That data now moves someplace where eventually I can use it. When I come out of a competitive assessment, in the tool, I'm able to qualify discriminators. And a discriminator will allow me to identify something that the competitor can't claim, highlight how it helps the competitor and why it's important to them, the benefit they get, and the risk it mitigates. And as I'm thinking the piece part, as I described, the text aggregates. So the tool is designed in such a way to spend most of your time on thinking, data entry once, move the data, fast generation of artifacts, such that you can use those artifacts for stakeholders downstream, like solution architects, to communicate to them, or proposal managers, or communicate to the C-suite.
Peter, I know you've been doing this for a number of years, and you have deep experience in accumulating this kind of information. And something that SET allows you to do is to preserve that data that has been input, so that if you have personnel changes, when you go to work on subsequent pursuits, you don't have to start all over again necessarily. You can learn from that prior effort. You have data available that can be applied in future situations. Can you explain that?
Well, certainly. As you're using SET, what's happening is you're building a company-specific data lake, crown jewels. So a company could buy third-party business intelligence, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have a competitive advantage if the competition can buy the same data. The competitive advantage really comes into play is when you take that context, you do respective analyses, and all of a sudden you start to make decisions. Hey, we're going to use that as a strategy to highlight our strength, or we're going to use that as a strategy to minimize our weakness. Now, those strategies, as well as other data in SET, go into a data lake. And the advantage of that is, and we always say that whether you win or lose a competitive pursuit, every time you use SET, the value of your company is always increasing. And I'll explain why. Those strategies are staying in there. Now, right now we have in SET a lot of natural language processing. We have intent of adding more artificial intelligence and machine language this year, such that you'll be able to say in SET, when doing SEC DevOps against competitor X, and we won, and you'll be able to say, which proposal strategies did we use? So the more you use SET, the more value you get. Sort of like the more you pay your mortgage, the more equity you get in your house over time. Well, those strategies are in there. So now you have that thread. What's the advantage there? Very often what happens on competitive pursuits is you have an individual doing capturing the opportunity for your company, and that individual can leave for any number of reasons, right? They win the lottery, they get taken up in a rapture, whatever the case might be. Well, what happens is the whole capture falls apart. But with SET, somebody could come in and they could quickly realize exactly what that guy did up to that point, where he left off, and what has to be done next, such that you don't lose that competitive momentum that you need to win. The other thing is, I mentioned the data mining, and the reason that data mining is the data in is really important is because I was part of a number of acquisitions in the past. And every time a company acquired a company, it never got its true return on investment. And the reason was that the people who knew really how they got to the win and the work that got done were never the people in the C-suite level. It was always those people, those mid-tier people. Well, if the company is using SET, when they acquire a company, if a company is using SET, the company that acquires them has a higher likelihood of being able to rinse and repeat success, because it's not a matter of them saying, here is our winning proposal that got us to the win, but they're going to actually be able to see what was the blueprint to win, what were the strategies that got them to the win. They're going to be seeing all those details. They're there. And for that reason, that should put a higher premium on a company that wants to get acquired. If you're private equity and you invest in a company, okay, you can use SET to determine how that company is progressing to get you your return on investment. And the reason that is because there's 4 algorithms in SET. And 3 of those algorithms feed an algorithm called the Growth Status Index. And a CEO of a company is going to be able to know at any point in time, how is my company doing today to win the work of tomorrow? And the reason is because SET, we have a tool in there, but it feeds an algorithm that measures the quality of handoff between the business developer and the individual responsible for capturing the work. We have an algorithm in there that measures how ready is the company for a recompete. We have the algorithm there that measures how well is the work being done to capture this opportunity over time. And those 3 algorithms feed what I call the Growth Status Index. And that Growth Status Index can measure on a value between 0 and 1, how well my company is proceeding to win the work that we need to win tomorrow to grow. Not what my current book of business is and whatever's in that pipeline. It's a goal. What really counts is, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? And are you doing it well? And can you show evidence of it? Well, SET is designed to be, if it's to be used in such that it can answer that question for that CEO, what's the growth status of my company today, by measuring and all those other things I just described.
Peter, I know we're only touching the very tip of the iceberg here. This is meant to give people an opportunity to see you, the mastermind behind SET. They will be encouraged to go to the other video that shows a more extensive demonstration of SET. And this is an acknowledgement that despite all the discussion that has led up to coming to this capture phase in the acquisition phase of any federal sale, there does come a time when you have to get down to the real details of how to work the capture to position yourself for that contract. I hope people will take advantage of this, and I appreciate you making time for us today.